Hey everybody, let's get riggedy wrecked on today's episode of the Elseworlds Exchange, because we're going to be talking about Rick and freaking Morty, a show
Burger
that
time.
Characteristically I avoided when it first aired, and then
Same.
a friend of mine told me it was brilliant, and I didn't trust his opinion, but then he came over to my place and he just made me watch the whole first season in one sitting, and I was like, I'm hooked.
I came to it similarly super late. I didn't get into Rick and Morty until like halfway into season 2, and I only did that because I mainlined like all of Steven Universe. And I'm like, okay, now that was cool and sweet and everything. I want something on the complete other spectrum of that. Give me something dark and cynical and adultly humorous. And oh boy, was Rick and Morty the perfect thing.
Yes. Now, obviously, if you're watching this episode, you are probably a fan of Rick and Morty, the show that is created by community developer Dan Harmon and Channel 101 creator Justin Roiland.
It's funny you call him Rick because he voices both Rick and Morty.
He's Rick and Morty. He's and if you've ever watched his earlier work, which is all on YouTube, you can go check out what's it called? Channel 101. You'll see his Doc and Marty sketches, which are way more inappropriate, but
oh yeah,
you can see exactly where Rick and Morty comes from and where the voices are being developed, and how Morty is basically just a really, really exaggerated, really poor version of a Marty McFly voice.
Yep.
And I guess if you follow the logic, Rick is basically just an exaggerated. At least the first season. And then towards the end of the first season, he changes, but like
he becomes so much more.
But it's basically a Christopher Lloyd as Doc voice.
It's like someone took the thing where it's like, imagine if Doc was actually a dangerous, crazy person and not like the happy, sunny, fun, kid-friendly crazy person that he is in the Back to the Future movies.
Exactly. But created by that, it's on Adult Swim, the place that created another show that was dark and rich and humorous and animated that I really loved, The Venture Brothers, which is part of the reason why I avoided Rick and Morty for so long, was because I loved and watched Venture Brothers, and then it took like 5 years between seasons, and I was like, I don't see what you two are doing that isn't this show. It's not like you're working. It's not like, okay, it's been like 10 years since a Homestar Runner cartoon.
Yeah.
But those two got jobs at Disney and do stuff that's literally just Homestar Runner, but not theirs. I get why they're not doing Homestar Runner anymore. With Venture Brothers, it's like, what have you been doing, though?
I don't know, but it's like I know I was really into the last season, telling you, oh, it's so funny, they've moved to Marvel's New York, they're doing this, that, and the other, they got all these killer Avengers jokes, and you're like, don't care.
Yeah, I don't. I really don't. They wore out their welcome with me. I dedicated a big portion. That's the thing. When you're a nerd, when you're a geek, when you are big into, especially comics, you have so much headspace for so many different universes and so many different like genres and. I remember getting into I remember when The Matrix aired, or not aired, but when it came out, and there was a big subset of my culture that was like all in on Matrix, and I'm like, nah, I could take it or leave it. And people were like, what are you talking about? You love Terminator, you love Predator, you love comic books, you love this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, yeah, I only have so much space up here. I can't dedicate another portion of my brain to Morpheus and Zion and all the bullshit ghosts and shit. I can't do it.
I've never become a Fast and the Furious fan, because I'm like, nope, that's one too many subgenres, too many for me.
Fast and the Furious works for me. It's easy for me to not care because I don't care about cars.
Yeah, that's same for me.
I just straight up don't care about cars. Like, it's just,
even though people are like, "Oh, it's become so much more now." They're like car superheroes now.
Right. I don't give a shit about that. That does not appeal to me. But with Venture Brothers, I felt really like I was. Actually, Tiffany got me into Venture Brothers, and I loved it so much. I'm like, this is really cool. And then basically, the creators showed just utter disdain and contempt for its audience, and I was like, fuck you too. I don't need to have like encyclopedic dedication to the intricacies of Rusty Venture's neuroses and what a miserable bastard. Everyone in the show is a miserable bastard. Everyone's flawed and broken, and they're never going to change. But not because like they're the Simpsons and they can't change. It's because they're never going to change because people don't change. It's a really frustrating, sad like universe, and
that's what I like about it.
I like it. I like the idea, and I like the fantastic, and the humor is legitimately part of me. Like, I like that humor, but at the same time, if the creators don't give a shit about me, if they don't care about the show, and the show itself is not a joy to watch, then it's easy for me to let it go. And
see, I think they got some of that back in the last season.
Right, but like by then they've used up all of my goodwill for the show. They did 2 gigantic breaks between seasons. Like,
well, and you got a special movie there in some in between as well that
right,
kind of bridged the gap.
Which they didn't need to do. They could have just done the show.
It was basically like, hey, and here's the 2-part finale that we would have done, but we're just doing it as a movie.
Right, but that's my point. Is just they could have just made the show instead and saved us a year and a half, or 2 years, or 3 years between seasons. With Rick and Morty, it's actually interesting because for me, I'm like, okay, there was a big gap between season 2 and 3.
Although not as long as it was supposed to be. They even joked about the gap being longer, but Cartoon Network and Adult Swim were like, no. Move this up on the timetable.
And it could have been Venture Brothers syndrome. They were like, we can't lose our audience like we did with Venture Brothers.
Possibly.
But for me, it's in spite of myself. Like, I can't get enough of Rick and Morty.
It's true. It's true. It's made me fans of the other stuff. It's made me want to go back and watch the Channel 101 stuff. It's made me want to go back and watch Heat Vision and Jack. Heck, I'm a fan of Dan Harmon's Harmontown podcast now because of Rick and Morty.
Yeah. I absorbed everything that I could of Roiland and Harmon and everything. I was actually a big Harmon fan beforehand, or at least I was, of the first few seasons of Community. I loved Community, and I liked the humor there, and I liked the how it made you happy cry. But I, of course the show fell apart and died. I kind of got why and how Harmon, I like bitter, miserable Harmon.
Yes.
Who's, without the failure of Community, you don't get Rick and Morty, because
it's true.
There's some demons in that show
it's a direct answer too. And again, if you listen to Harmon a lot, he has this amazing history of being part of shows and being part of projects, only to be fired from them. He was the first couple seasons of the Sarah Silverman show, too, before he got fired for being too hard to work with. Yeah. And he wrote Monster House, and he was apparently going to do more stuff with that studio until he got fired for being hard to work with.
Now, that's being said, yeah, I can imagine how Dan Harmon can be really frustrating to work with.
As he says himself every time, I want it to be good is the problem.
Right. And it's like, dude, no one is arguing. I don't think they're fighting with you on making it good. I think it's a question of opinions about what is good. But
it's almost like, is this John K syndrome too, where it's like, I will take forever to make this done.
And that's the thing. And we'll get into our love for Rick and Morty and some overview of the first 2 seasons in a minute. But I wanted to talk about, did you read the post-Hangover tweet barrage from Dan Harmon apologizing for the delay and kind of explaining why?
Yes, I did actually. In fact, he went into that a bunch in Harmontown as well before he did the Hangover tweet. But yes, give people more insight into that.
Well, so there's a big gap between season 2 and season 3. People were wondering why, and apparently, though I didn't hear about this because I stay away from, because I want to enjoy the show. I don't want to be spoiled. I really stay away from the subreddits and all that shit. So I avoided that, and so I missed the whole apparent drama or supposed drama that there might have been some infighting between Harmon and Roiland.
That was the popular prevailing theory, yeah.
Which is not a hard-to-believe theory, given that Dan Harmon's relationships with everyone that he's ever worked on any television show fall apart or are destroyed because of the frustrating personality that is Dan Harmon.
Geez, you should hear some of the arguments between him and his wife during their D&D streams.
I can't even imagine. I don't want to I don't even want to listen to it. But
they went to some dark places. The man loves the sauce, and he's not afraid to say things when he's had a couple Kettle Ones.
Yikes. But apparently what happened was they understand the quality of the first 2 seasons, and they want to be as faithful to the level of standards that we have expected from those shows that we are at. So like they wanted season 3 to. It's literally just we're taking more time because we're worried that we're not being as talented and as good at it as we should be.
And I totally agree with that. Third season slump is a real thing, especially for animated shows.
Oh yeah, no question. Unless it's The Simpsons, in which case it's actually even better than the last season.
Yeah, that's it's seasons 3 to 9 are the golden classics that will never be surpassed.
Now that said, one of the reasons that like really engendered me to Rick and Morty was it was evident to me that the creators of Rick and Morty, before I even knew who they were, loved The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
For me, it's like an adult Simpsons show, and I don't mean it's just The Simpsons, but like Family Guy is an adult Simpsons or whatever. I think that it's just like, these are the people who were raised on the humor that I was raised on as well. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of spectacular. And it's not aping off those jokes. It's building off of that foundation of humor.
And you can tell the Simpsons writers love Rick and Morty because there's actually, on like the season 1 DVD, there's a whole commentary track that's just, hey, here's the current Simpsons writers talking about an episode of Rick and Morty they really like. And Rick and Morty did the great couch gag for Simpsons, which I think is an amazing, torch passing moment in a way.
Oh, the couch gag with Rick and Morty is basically like just a crossover episode. It's worth watching, and of course never then checking out The Simpsons afterwards. Just watch the couch gag, because literally every reference in that episode, in that couch gag, references the seasons that we've talked about in our episode of The Simpsons on Elseworlds Exchange that are great. Clearly those two were like, no, these are the shows.
Morty, we gotta clean this up quick. Any character could walk by. There's like 1 million characters here, Morty.
George Bush was their mayor, or was their neighbor.
He was. He really was.
So, anyway, there was a big tweet barrage from Dan Harmon, said, like, don't worry, the show is still good. Everyone who's working on it is still happy and fine, and we're fine.
He doesn't like episode 4, though. He says episode 4 of this newest season is the worst one they've done.
It's probably another TV episode then.
Possibly. I guess we'll see.
Because I will say, I love those. Okay, let's talk about the Infinite TV phenomenon.
Yes.
It's 2 episodes.
Intergalactic TVs.
Yeah, the 2 episodes for both seasons, 1 episode per season, where they just go in the booth, get completely fucked up, and then just improv jokes. Mm-hmm. And then make these poor, amazing animators make it real.
Amazing.
It's amazing on so many levels. The fact that they do it, the fact that they make the animators create them, how talented the animators are, when you think about how I hope there's no communication between the animators and the creators themselves, and just go like, here's the audio, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I love everything about what they do, even if not all the jokes land.
That too. And also to be smart enough to be like, okay, this will be the A story, but we'll have to have a really hard-working B story in these episodes, too.
I want to say, and this is not true because I don't know it to be true, but I want to believe that the B stories for the Infinite TV episodes are the Dan Harmon, like, I will die on this hill, we need to do this episode, like, concession, where it's like, we're not going to do a full episode where Jerry needs to dedicate his penis to some like intergalactic peacekeeper.
Yeah, to save the alien Dalai Lama.
But we will use it to fill time in our improv episode.
Mm-hmm. Or what is it? Summer finding out she was a mistake.
Yes, too. God. And by the way, like, okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Just through the improv episodes, even in the episodes that seemingly they don't give a shit about, because while we said they're both brilliant, I think the second one is a little less brilliant than the first.
It is, but they even make a joke about that too, saying, when is the sequel ever better than the original?
Yeah, I think we nailed it on the first round, but all right. Although the B plot I think is more fun, and I'm still making jokes from that episode itself. Look at me, I have a pencil for a dick. It's just Werner Herzog doing a voice for
amazing.
Shrimply Pibbles, just amazing.
A truly respected, creator, actor, everything else, and they've got him saying complete nonsense. I wonder if him and what is it, Patrick Stewart have like a bet going on, like which more respected actor can say the sillier things in their own shows.
Exactly. I mean, Patrick Stewart is winning by a country freaking mile. The dude says no to no one. He's done Empire commercials. He's on American Dad, despite the fact the show was killed twice. He's Poop in the Emoji Movie, which, by the way, no one go see it, because this should be the movie that should kill Sony so that we can get Spider-Man forever. So
yes, that's all you have to do. Just don't see this movie.
Yeah, all you have to do is listen to the voice inside you that says, I probably don't want to see that Emoji Movie, and don't see the Emoji Movie.
That's all you need to do. In fact, form chain gangs outside the theaters to make sure other people don't see it as well.
But just don't tell your counterculture friend not to see it, because he's gonna like do the opposite. He's just annoying, Gary.
To be ironic.
Sucks. Anyway, but yeah. So Rick and Morty. What do you want? Joel, what do you want to do? What do you want to say now? Where do you want to go with that?
Oh, geez, Sal. I mean, it's in our relationship. Who's the Rick and who's the Morty?
Yeah, I think we just answered that question, man.
Geez, Sal, you're really giving me a hard time over here.
Yeah, I'm really giving you a hard time. You're really asking for it, Joel. That's
100 years, Rick and Morty.
Man, I gotta tell you, really quick, Rick and Morty's story, just how it's permeated in my life. It's ruined me. I was at a Comic-Con in Jersey recently, not too recently, but a little while ago, and there were a couple of people hanging out, and we were Tiff and I went there, and we were on our way out, and there was a girl holding her Morty doll. She had a doll of Morty,
which you can buy.
And it wasn't like a Etsy doll; it was made specifically for
Zen
the
Monkey
show.
Studios.
And she dropped it, and she dropped it. He fell on the floor, and I went, "Oh, jeez." You really dropped me on the floor there, as I'm walking past her. And she turned around like for a second she thought maybe the doll had come to life.
Yep.
It was really funny, but it's destroyed me. I'm literally like I make these references. The Gazorp fucking field joke.
Yeah, which has also been a long-running thing from Channel 101 and Harmon and Royland. They love Garfield, and Harmon has said it's the only thing he can draw.
That's amazing. By the way, quick shout out.
Does it. Also.
Oh, thank you, Master Yoda. You are awesome as well, my friend. But yeah, man, I don't give a fuck. I'm Gazorp fucking field, bitch. Give me my fucking enchiladas.
Yep.
It's unbelievable.
It's like, wait, do you guys like Garfield or do you not like Garfield? I can't tell anymore.
I think as a fan of Garfield and Friends, but not a fan of the strip, I can safely say that anyone who likes Garfield also secretly hates Garfield. I'll tell you this, I think that Heathcliff should die in a fire, but I do also, have zero respect, but infinite respect for Jim Davis.
That too.
Because Jim Davis, right? He creates this one-note joke. It should have lasted a year. It's a horrible joke. Fat cat likes food he shouldn't be eating, and a miserable, perpetually single, failure of a man talks to his cat. That's the joke. And then he turned it into an empire where he doesn't even draw the fucking thing. He trained dozens of people to all draw exactly like him.
Yep.
To keep the strip going, it could go forever. They'll never stop making Garfield. It's amazing.
It is amazing. I guess one of my favorite things, too, about Rick and Morty, and it's something the chat has brought up, too, it is wonderfully, amazingly nihilistic in its way. It might actually be one of the darkest shows on television, and yet it completely embraces that darkness, and it completely embraces the absurdism of a universe and a multiverse with endless possibilities.
The nihilism fact, for me, is kind of interesting, because I remember people talking about, how the episode with Unity had the darkest ending ever. And in fact, if you look up that ending, it's called the darkest ending of any show. First of all, no, it's not. Second of all, I think that their nihilism has gone so far, it's broken the needle and come out through the other side.
It's true.
Where Rick understands that no choice he makes matters because there's an infinite number, or there's not an infinite number, but there's so many of him it makes him irrelevant.
Yeah.
But through that it motivates him to make him the most singular among his multiples.
I am the most Rick.
And if you'll also recognize the fact that there's like this element in the show, there's this persistent theme of ice cream.
Yes.
Throughout Rick and Morty. It is one of the few things that gives Rick genuine joy.
It's true.
And he pursues it like people pursue like their dream career. You know, and it reminds me of the Calvin and Hobbes strip where Calvin and Hobbes are in the woods, and Calvin asks Hobbes if he could have one wish, what could it be? And Hobbes wishes for a sandwich, and then Calvin gives him a really hard time, and he's like, "A sandwich? What a ridiculous wish! I would wish for my own private island and an army and missiles and all this stuff." And then at the end of the strip, Hobbes gets the sandwich and he eats it, and he says, "I got my wish," and it's a little metaphor about how it's like, you should set, I guess, like, well, you could set your sights a little lower, but more like be realistic about the things you can accomplish.
Yeah.
And Rick is like, I can't matter in the universe, but at least I can have ice cream, and there's something beautiful and simplistic and joyful about that.
Ice cream's funny too because it's the end result of chemistry. It's rock salt and cream and everything else coming together, and it's great, but it's also fleeting, isn't it? It will also melt. It's incredibly fragile.
Yeah, but it's also everywhere, and
yeah.
Like you're never too far from ice cream.
It's true. And even when ice cream's bad, it's still pretty good.
It's true. So while there is like this big theme of nihilism, I think there's also an undercurrent of hope, which
there really is. Which
for me is like the marriage of Roiland and Harmon. Because Roiland, I think if you just gave Roiland nothing, you could see it. You could see what Rick and Morty's like with no Dan Harmon, and it's the Doc and Marty sketches where it's just children masturbating old men.
Yep,
what?
Yep.
That's what it is. Look it up. But maybe not, maybe use incognito. But but with Dan Harmon, he's like, no, but there is an undercurrent of meaning like within it. And that
they are yin and yang. They are order and chaos in many ways.
It's why I can enjoy Channel 101, but why I'm not like rabidly interested in it.
Same.
Because like it's I think that while Channel 101 is a great predecessor to Rick and Morty, without the Harmon effect, you don't have quite the perfection that the show has become. That's why I'm also almost a little worried about Dan Harmon's rabid dedication to making the best possible show he has.
Yeah.
Like, I trust the creative process, and I trust my creators to be as good as they're going to be. Like you've written papers before.
Oh yeah,
for scholastic endeavors,
most definitely. Double spaced,
right? Well, of course, but if you're going to work on a paper, I have a little bit of a philosophy where I'm like, this paper is going to be as good as it's going to be, and no amount of me like dreading it, worrying about it, or like writing note cards and doing all this bullshit is going to make the paper any better. And while it might be structurally better, it might have more cogent ideas. If I'm writing it, and it's from my perspective, and it's like, especially if it's an opinion, it's not going to be any better than it would have been if I had put 17 hours into it.
Yeah.
Or if I dedicated 10 hours to sleeping and, 5 hours to writing and 2 hours to ice cream. There needs to be a balance. And
I think a perfect example of this is in the Mr. Meeseeks episode, where when they talked about writing that particular episode, Roiland was getting really frustrated and agitated, where it's like, this isn't fun. Writing's supposed to be fun. He then apparently started rolling on the floor like a toddler going, I'm Mr. Meeseeks, look at me. And instead of like getting mad at this, Dan Harmon told the other writers, okay, his name is Mr. Meeseeks. We have to work with him on this. Okay, tell us more about Mr. Meeseeks.
Exactly. No, like that's... I mean, you need to be frustrated. Like, you need to be put into a box to find your way out.
Yeah.
But that's exactly the encompassing like element that I'm talking about. That's what the show is. The show is just like, it's brilliant because they're not trying to be brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. And in some cases, when fans are like, oh, I love the continuity and the lore and the evil Morty and the Council of Ricks and everything else, when are you going to go back to that? Harmon and Roiland's response, I think, is really profound, where they're like, well, we could do that. Or we could show you some new shit. Or we could burn it all down.
Right, exactly.
And indeed they do.
I love the opening of season 3. He's like, no more of that. I'm like, great, good, get rid of it.
They give closure to all of it, then they destroy it.
Yeah, and then they move on. I mean, like, you know that we're never going to see the alien that Steve Colbert voiced, because Steve Colbert doesn't come back to do voices after he does it the first time.
He doesn't.
We know that from Venture Brothers.
It's true.
And in fact, if you ever look that up, I remember they asked Steve Colbert to come back to play Mr. Impossible again, and he was like, oh, and he didn't respond, but his publicist did, and his publicist said something to the effect of, Mr. Colbert believes that he has done all he can with that character. And I'm like,
jeez,
fuck you! Way to
like
not say anything.
He's like Jim Morrison in The Doors. Man, I already played that show.
Yeah. Man, I played Mr. Impossible. Moving on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But okay, so now we talked a little bit about why we like Rick and Morty so much, because it's genuine, it's real, but it also has that wonderful element of sci-fi fantastic, which we love.
Oh yeah. And they really mine some great episodes out of it. Like they have the Purge episode and the Space Parasite episode, which I think is one of the best 22 minutes of television I've seen in a science fiction setting.
Yes. That's the thing, is that every episode, I can throw on any episode of either season, and there's no episode where I go, oh, it's this one.
It's true. They're all really well put together, really well assembled.
Yeah. It's awesome. I'm in awe of that, but it's also, for me, it's the Simpsons effect, where it's like, listen, seasons 3, 4, I don't have to skip an episode. Rick and Morty, seasons 1 and 2, I don't have to skip an episode. I'm hopeful that season 3 is as good as seasons 1 and 2.
Definitely.
But I don't want them to worry about it. I want them to just keep making the show the way they've been doing. You've already nailed it. Stop drilling, you've hit oil. I would hate to think that they were like, okay, I mined, I stripped down everything that was me, and I farmed this amazing season. Now what am I going to do for season 4? No, just do what you do best.
Yeah. Yeah, don't feel... don't let it drag you down.
Yeah. Now we've seen a couple of, I'm sure you've watched them, the live Rick and Morty readings and improv episodes at cons.
Yep, they've been all over the place touring that around.
First of all, it's fun. I love that. What's it called? I love that Roiland has no patience for them.
Yep, true.
Especially when they're there's an episode where they're like, okay, now we're just gonna improv an episode. Here's the scene, and Roiland does everything he can to fuck with it.
Oh yeah.
I love that, but I also feel really bad because they usually bring in Chris Parnell and the amazing voice of Beth, whose name escapes me, and I feel really bad about that.
It's a really good cast. Parnell's been having a great cartoon resurgence ever since he left SNL. He's nailed a couple really good gigs.
Yeah, but the voice cast for the show is Sarah Chalk. Is her name.
Thank you.
But the voice cast for the show is so great, and they're all so singularly funny and insightful. There's no ego bullshit when it comes to this show, but they're always so marginalized whenever they do the live shit, because people just want to watch Roiland do Rick and Morty and have them yell at each other.
Yep, which they do.
Which they do. But I think one of my favorite characters is Beth.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with Beth as a character.
Beth is an amazing character that would exist in a Dan Harmon rom-com or sitcom or legitimate thing. Hey, the Mod King Mopey just jumped in. 1,000 years, Sal and Jolie.
Yes. Hey, animate that.
I want to see that art now of me as Rick and Joel as Morty.
We've had some killer fan art, thanks to MD Kex, who really took it upon himself to make, Red Bat.
Yeah, Canadian Batman.
Become a thing.
But I always feel bad that they never get their due, because they're always so great. Summer, her voice actor, is amazing.
Summer's had a great evolution from just being the, kind of mean sister to actually going on adventures and forging her own interesting relationship with Rick that's completely different from his relationship with Morty.
Completely. Yeah.
She doesn't take his shit a lot of the time, and yet she needs his help a lot of the time, too.
It's true. Well, she's the perfect teenager because she thinks she is on top of everything. She thinks she knows where she is, but she clearly doesn't. It's the effortlessness that it seems exists in the show is a testament to the amount of work that goes into it. It feels obvious. Anyone can do a Rick and Morty impression. as evident by the last time we were at New York Comic Con, and I bumped into all of those Ricks.
So many Ricks.
Ran into a
Lady
council...
Ricks, man Ricks.
I ran into a council of Ricks. It was just 1,000 Ricks. I was wearing a Rick and Morty shirt, which Tiffany, I think, had purchased for me at the time, at the con. And they were like, oh, geez, look, somebody's got another Rick shirt. Like, I'm just like, okay, that was fun. But, like, you know, the show makes it seem like it's easy to be Rick, but it's not.
Yeah, but I think it's really interesting, too, that Roiland, one of the creators, is the voice of both Rick and Morty. He had to fight tooth and nail for that. They did not want him to do the voice of either character, let alone both. Yes.
I had no idea about that. That's amazing.
Oh, him and Harmon had to fight super hard for that. They're like, no, we want to get a more marquee voice actor to put on the thing. And of course, Roiland and Harmon both said too, they think one of the big reasons they didn't want him to do that is they didn't want him to have like Seth MacFarlane power in the, oh, I do the voice, I write, I'm a creator, I am literally indispensable, you can never get rid of me.
Yeah, well, you know what? I like when that happens.
It's true.
But, yeah, it's... The voices are amazing. The cast is spectacular. Let's talk about some favorite episodes. It's hard to pick because they're so good.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'll let you go first, and I'm sure we have many of the same favorite episodes.
Okay. Mr. Meeseeks and Destroy is, I think, my favorite episode. I don't want to say it's because, like, you know, I mean, like, here's the thing. It's my favorite episode because, A, I can watch it anytime. B, it is, I think, the perfect introduction to the show.
Yeah, that's the one I knew I was a lifer. It's like, okay, you got me now, show. I'm in.
That's the episode I think we showed to Ethan, and he was like, well, I'm obsessed with the show now. Mm-hmm. Immediately, we just had to show Me, Seeks, and Destroy, and he went out, like, he went home, he's like, cool, that was a fun show. And then went home and watched all of it, and then read about it, and became a fan. Like, I think that's the thing. It has this kind of amazing, infectious quality to it, because it's so clever.
It really does. I mean, even just the idea of Meeseeks as characters where it's like, yeah, they're creatures born into this world, not wanting for purpose. They have a single thing they need to do so they can die, and when they can't complete that task, it is a hell on earth for them.
He just exploded. Trust me, they're fine with
it. They're super okay with it. It's like, look, guys, you need to be really vague with these.
Yeah, I love how Rick does not give the amount of information they need in order to effectively use what they have properly. He does that every time with everything they do.
It's true. It really is. And you know, what is it? Beth and Summers are equally, vague. You know, I want to be popular. I want to, you know, feel like a more complete woman. And yet they're able to deal with their problems much easier than they are taking strokes off Jerry's golf game.
Yeah, well, because you can be convinced of your absolution better than you can legitimately develop a skill.
It's true. It really is true. And once again, too, showing that Jerry is forever the wrench into these things.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, the fact that in the episode with the simulations.
Oh, yes.
I don't remember which one that is, because they all have obnoxiously difficult to remember and difficult to connect to the actual theme.
They're all gibberish names. That one was M. Night Shyamalan Aliens.
Thank you. Okay.
Which I only know because they're making fun of M. Night Shyamalan.
Right. Yes. But that's great because you think that it's about Rick and Morty, but it's actually about Jerry.
Yeah.
That's a great episode. That's a great character study for Jerry, where Jerry gets to experience what it's like to actually succeed.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking sad.
My greatest day was all a simulation running at half power.
Yeah. I actually was just watching it the other day when the apple disappears and he just tries to get it, where he grasps at nothing. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's sad. It's so sad. Like that's more sad than Rick being rejected by Unity.
Yeah, and trying to kill himself. It's funny, that episode too reminds you that Rick is actually not to be fucked with, and that Rick is so smart that, like, it actually brings a lot of danger.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the episode with the Appley? Like,
yeah, where he ends up blowing up the scammer ship and everything.
Yeah,
at the end.
yeah. Why don't you ask the smart people in the universe? Oh yeah, you can't. They blew up.
Yeah. Not only is, like, he really good, but he's also kind of dangerous.
Yes. which it's funny, they hint at it throughout the whole series, and then I think in the first episode of season 3, they just outright say, he's the smartest man in the universe, he can't be fucked with, we have to deal with it.
It's kind of amazing. It really is like a Reed Richards type thing, which is fitting because they have the Council of Ricks, which is just totally taken from the Council of Reeds.
It's the Council of Reeds, but with like the aesthetic of the Council from Krypton.
And Doctor Who. That's the thing. They dress like the Gallifreyans as well, too.
It's amazing. No, that's...
Which people have made that comparison to old man travels through space in a craft with companions getting into adventures. He is a lot like Doctor Who in a way, but a really fucked up American Doctor Who.
Right. The difference is I want to watch Rick and Morty.
I've tried with Doctor Who several times. I watched many seasons, but it never clicked with me.
Yeah, I have definitely watched Doctor Who. I think I watched a good 10 minutes of one episode and was like, no, don't care about
one of those things you had to grow up with.
I really did. I really needed to be hamstrung by my family and being forced to watch it.
And it's a cultural thing too. It's a very it's part of the British identity.
This is true. Yeah, no, that's the other thing. Is that like, here's the thing. As an American, I feel like a tool. Liking Doctor, I'm like, that's not even for me.
I mean, hey, there's like old ass men in British Parliament who are like, okay, we need to get this meeting done quick because the new Doctor Who's on in 10.
Yeah, I like that. I like a show's influence on the culture where where that happens.
Yeah, even to the halls of power where it's like, no, there's dudes in their 70s who have been watching since they were like 6.
Exactly, really, and when they weren't watching, they were listening to the radio broadcast of the show.
That too.
Another one that blows my mind, of course, is Get Schwifty.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the only one that has nothing to do with any of these titles.
It's true. I love that one, too, because you get to hear Dan Harmon's Ice-T voice, which is so on point, I thought it was actually Ice-T.
You made me care more.
Yeah. you just can't go, what is it, floating through space, not caring about things.
Man, overdeveloped, underdeveloped, a bad song is a bad
song. Oh man, we're all out of original Fig Newtons.
Man, you didn't tell me you were fucking around with portals and shit.
Apparently when the real Ice-T heard about that, he's like, well, why didn't they ask me to be on it? I would have been on it.
You know why? Because it's funnier to hear a pretty accurate Ice-T impression. It's more deprecating.
From an old-ass, bearded white man.
Yeah, I better crunch the numbers.
If you love that, it's on YouTube, you need to find Harmontown Ice-T D&D, where he's like, okay, I'll be Ice-T, but as a dungeon master. All right, so you're in a forest, right? And there are these goblins and shit, right? It's pretty amazing.
See, for that, just get Ice-T. I want that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Harmon and the other guy, that skinny comedian that I like so much, do a really, really solid Ice-T impression.
Mm-hmm. That's also an episode, too, based around songs and music, because apparently both Harmon and Roiland love improving rap songs.
That's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently Get Schwifty, even to that song that we all love so much, wasn't even intended for that episode. That was another project that was just Roiland screwing around. They needed, like, background songs for something, and he just out of nowhere started saying, Get Schwifty, it's Schwifty time today, and they're like, that's too perfect, we need to put that in something.
That episode is so funny for every reason that you can think of. I like Beth's subplot. I like the indifference of the heads. I like how like annoyed they get about really random things.
It's also an episode about religion.
Yes, I love Keith David playing the president and how into Schwifty he gets.
Clarence Boddicker as the vice president or as the evil general. That was fun,
the evil general.
Science fiction royalty in that episode.
Yeah, it's gold. I just love that. Well, I gotta make sure that Rick's got everything he needs to get Schwifty. Like, what are you doing?
Get Schwifty was a jam. Oh no, all the celebrities were killed. What are we gonna do now?
Yeah, we have Ice-T.
And this old man. Also, too, that episode is interesting, too, because that's Rick and Morty using their skills and having an adventure to literally save the world.
Yeah.
And yet, even after they save the world, they don't become heroes or celebrities. They're just back to life as normal.
And they don't, they don't grow.
No, they don't. That was just another day at the office for them.
I like that a lot. I also like that they don't, like, do bullshit. Like, the only acknowledgement to the annoying sci-fi trope of, like, normal people save the world, we have to keep it a secret, is when Morty's like, can I get a selfie? And he's like, no. And then just breaks his phone.
That's pretty good.
It's great.
It's also funny, too, because up until that point, I'm like, wait, are Rick and Morty trying to, like, hide the adventures they're having? No, everyone knows, they just don't care.
Exactly. No, there's one every season. Well, it's like Get Schwifty, right? It's not brilliant. It's not like actual music. It's just him fucking around. But A, it's really catchy, and B, it's really funny, and C, even in the show, they acknowledge how not great it is when they do the song, and the head just goes, like he doesn't.
Acceptable.
He just says like yeah, okay, that's fair. Like he is the audience, where it's like, all right, for they had to think of that on the spot. I'll give it to him. Even the head does.
It's also, too, when you unpack the giant heads, too, there's some, in any other context, they would be fucking horrifying. This race that has evolved to this giant level where the only thing they care about is entertainment and being entertained, and they will destroy whole universes just to get a little excitement.
Yeah.
Like, that's like that could be a Star Trek episode where they took it 100% seriously.
No, totally. I think it is an episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, basically,
I was like,
yeah.
People are quoting Mr. Bulldops in the comments. Just that I think was, maybe, I don't remember if it was, I think it was Me, Seeks and Destroy, and then it was Get Schwifty, and I was like, I'm sold on this show. Mr. Bulldops.
Question mark. What does that mean?
Don't analyze it, Nathan. It's working. So what about you? What are some of your favorites?
Oh, geez. I mean,
because they're so good. They're all of them. Like
they really are. I mean, I come back to the Purge episode because I'm actually a fan of the Purge movies, and I like that it's a parody, but it's also kind of a loving parody of it, and also kind of acknowledging where it's like, yeah, I mean, we've had this in fiction for a bit. What if there was just a crazy kill night?
Yeah. Okay.
Plus, you get that bit with that idiot reading his screenplay. and Morty trying to be nice about it. Like, we've all been there. We've all been Morty in that situation.
Yes. And the fact that... Okay. I've never... there's a few things that have made me laugh, like, through a show. Like, through a commercial break back to when the show comes back. One of them was when Mr. Burns cripples the Irishman in the flashback.
When he's got the little strawberry curls and he's in the bumper car and he just keeps crippling the Irishman.
And Mr. Burns laughing all through his life and then being like, no, Smithers, what was I laughing at now? Oh, yes, that crippled Irishman, and then getting right back into it.
Yeah.
The Morty pushing the lighthouse keeper down the stairs. And then, first of all, the hilarious sound effect of him being like just him falling down the stairs, and then him going, "You like that? You want me to cut to 3 weeks earlier when you were alive?" I was destroyed as a person. I was a broken JPEG, and God damn it! There are so few moments where that happens for me in life, but so many moments where that happens to me in this show.
That's a great tune now that I stop and think about it. I like that episode too because it's actually quite a character growth episode for Morty.
Yeah.
That and the fart episode are times when Morty actually tries to go against Rick and actually tries to do some good and does the cliche trademark heroic thing. Only every time it blows up in his face in a massive, massive way. He totally makes things worse. But what's great about that episode is that I think that one seeks to imply Morty has way more Rick in him than he would like to admit.
That's true. Okay, so the analyses of Morty's morality is kind of fascinating because if Morty becomes more like Rick, you get evil Morty.
Yeah.
If Morty loses the innate morality that he keeps, he becomes something else. He's corrupted. But I really like this the main Morty, because this Morty has a balance where he's already, it's only been 2 seasons, he already knows everything about Rick. He knows how to predict Rick and counteract him. He knows what's going to happen.
Better than most people.
Yeah, he's already 100% convinced about what's going to happen. He's like when you're watching American Dad and you're like, oh, Roger's going to help them? This is going to result in Roger being a monster and he's going to fuck everything up.
Always.
Morty already knows what Rick's going to do and how he's going to do it and how it might benefit himself and tangentially relate to him, but he knows that if he goes against the grain, it's not going to work. And because of the very few circumstances where he has done the opposite of what Rick said, like you said, and then ultimately had to do what Rick wanted to do in the first place, which Rick didn't even want to do in the first place as well. Like, that's the other thing, is that Rick's like, if you just listen to me, you'd be fine. But you wanted to do, like, Morty wanted to go on the adventure, whereas Rick's like, no, like, you go on adventures with me. When you're not with me, you live a normal life.
Yeah.
When you want to do something like that, then you get almost raped by a jelly bean.
Yes, which is another holdover from a Channel 101 sketch.
Yes. But if you had just stayed at the arcade with me,
we would have had a great time.
Like Rick and Morty Prime, as evident by the that dude on his YouTube channel who brilliantly pointed out that, like, in that Blitz and Chips episode, the Rick and Morty that we see, the whole episode where they kill Fard and they destroy Gearhead and his entire
Gear World.
Get his entire world. That's not the main Rick and Morty. That's like one of the tangent Rick and Mortys, and that real Rick and Morty, like, had an okay time.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I think they're going to get into that in the future. We'll see where that goes. But Morty going off the beaten path is not beneficial for anybody.
It's almost entirely disastrous every time he tries.
Yeah. But I like that Morty also has, like, the understanding that he needs to do what Rick does. Like, when he's like, I have to kill Fart now.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what to do and he does it, and it's kind of cool. Like,
it's a total what would Rick do moment.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if Morty thinks that Rick wants to do it. I think he's just like, I have to kill you because you're going to destroy all of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, Rick wouldn't have even been involved.
Yeah.
You know, Rick would have been like, I mean, literally, Rick was like, you know, we'll live until we die, possibly by heart disease or vampire. You know,
that episode too also features one of my favorite side characters, Crumbopulous Michael, the very upbeat alien assassin. Hey, I just love killing.
Oh boy, here I go killing again.
Which I agree. What's great about that too, and how layered this show is, they imply a greater history of Crumbopulous Michael, because he has the little heart lock that he opens up, and he does like his Thane Krios from Mass Effect battle prayer.
Yes, he has a picture of this woman, whoever she is.
I'm assuming he's just Thane Krios from Mass Effect. He had a wife, she died, and now he's in like an alien battle sleep.
Yeah, amazing. And what's great is, like, he might come back or not. Like, who cares? I really like that element where we don't need to, like, I'm actually kind of amazed at the amount of attention Bird Person has gotten.
Definitely. Well, because Harmon does his voice, I'm sure.
Yeah, but, like, Harmon could play anybody. It's Roiland and Harmon play most of the side characters anyway. But I'm always amazed, like, when they introduce Bird Person in the beginning, like at the end of season 1, where he's just like, it's been a difficult mating season for Bird Person, and then him be Tammy, and then he leaves. That's amazing and really funny.
And that they keep coming back to that. I wonder if they had plotted that whole season out, if they knew that's what the arc was going to be, or if it just ended up being that way.
I guarantee you they were not planning on doing anything with Bird Person until they just enjoyed doing it. I guarantee you that Harmon just liked doing the voice, and they were like, let's put more Bird Person in.
And again, implying a greater history between him and Rick, that they were, like, young together, they were in a band with Squanchy.
But that's the thing, for me, I'm like, why? Like, we don't need more information about Bird. The fact that they, like, that they brought in Phoenix Person, I'm like, do we need to do more Bird Person? I thought
we might never even see Phoenix Person ever again.
But and I think that's the strength of the show, is like, we've reached the glass ceiling with Bird Person. Phoenix Person is going to show up, like, we're not going to do... Like, I was really expecting... Like, when they turned Chef into Darth Vader...
Oh, yeah, then you never saw anything.
They never did anything with that. I was like... Because at the end of it, I'm like, are you really going to do a thing? Where, like,
I think because the actor died not long afterwards, and I think they realized, yeah, a lot of this was pretty untasteful, what we did. Even for us, this was a little, maybe no.
Yeah, that's probably for the best. But yeah,
and also too, they probably didn't like getting sued by the Church of Scientology anymore after that. They're probably like, how many more lawsuits can we handle?
That's fair. Don't be gross, Tammy.
So good.
Yeah, it is random debris. I found it in my carpet. I don't know what humans eat.
What humans eat. On Bird World, we call that a dick move. And also, too, Bird Person giving the insight to Rick's famous anti-catchphrase of wubba lubba dub dub.
Yep.
In bird speak, that means help me, I'm, what is it, in great pain?
Yes, I'm in great pain, please help me. Or something to that effect. It's gold. Yeah, Rick's... The also... okay, yeah. But what other elements do you want to tackle before we...
Well, I was going to say,
off?
wubba lubba dub dub, that great anti-catchphrase. You know how that came about?
I can guess, but feel free to tell me.
The idea is that, you know, someone was just, you know, again, writing gibberish into the script. What's a dumb thing for Rick to say? And they wanted to do like a Three Stooges curly whoop, 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 but someone wrote it down wrong. And because Roiland is one of those guys who will read anything that's on the paper,
right,
he read it as wubba lubba dub dub. And they're like, okay, that's your new catchphrase now.
Yeah. I like it. Oh, God, the Needful Things episode is fucking amazing. But that's also... His Wubba Lubba Dub Dub is amazing in that one. When you, in the context of, like, I'm in great pain, please help me, when you first hear it, it's just funny. Like, it's just a funny catchphrase that really works. But then you have, like, his... The way that he... I assume that the Wubba Lubba Dub Dub thing came about later. Like, the meaning of it. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Like, I assume it was just a catchphrase, and then they were like, let's make it a cry for help as well.
Sure, why not?
Eddie Dizon, thank you, man. Welcome to the super chat. Says autoerotic asphyxiation was the first insight on how Beth lost Rick in the first place, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was too.
I think you're right.
That, yeah, he was absent for a good chunk of her life, which also begs the question, what about their mom, and how did she meet Rick, and what was that about, and will we ever get to see that, or does it not even matter? Because, like, in the first episode of Season 3, we think we're learning that only for Rick to be like, ha ha ha, fuck you, I'm unknowable.
That's the thing. And what a great moment it was, because it wasn't... I think it was... When we reveal... the origin of Rick and his misery and the loss of, like, it's utterly believable.
Yeah, oh, it sure is.
It's to the point where I almost believe that it was part of the series Bible and then they threw it out.
Yeah, it was almost too perfect where it's like, oh, Rick is the cause of Rick's own suffering. That's what it's all about.
Because Beth and his wife die in the simulated, you know, dream version of his origin. And so he leaves.
Yeah.
And he just, like, you imagine that later on he just slips in, in a different, reality, in a different multiverse where he just takes over that Rick.
Which he's done before, and as he said, can do again, but only a couple more times.
Only a couple more times. And you're like, that's really cool. And then they threw it away, and it's to the point where I was so enthralled with that concept and that idea, and just seeing that little bit of that little moment, that I'm like, maybe there's some element of truth to it, maybe blah blah. But the other thing is, it doesn't matter. Like the show is so brilliant and so clever that it almost, like, I keep drawing comparisons to Venture Brothers, because Venture Brothers is another, like, adult show that's kind of metatextual, that uses elements from our interests and then circumvents them and transcends them. But whereas Venture Brothers seeks to answer all the questions that nobody asked, Rick and Morty hint at questions, but ultimately the inherent nihilism of the show betray that it doesn't really matter.
It's everything is absurd. It's the nothing happens on purpose. No one's what they should be, where they belong. Come watch TV.
Yeah, it's gold. Yeah.
And also, too, sometimes, like, with the relationship between Beth and Jerry, which I think is the hardest working B-plot in the show, they would also seek to argue where it's like, yeah, we live in a completely chaotic multiverse where anything can happen, and that's terrifying because nothing we do matters. But also, here's the thing. Chaos undercuts chaos, which means sometimes things do happen the way they're supposed to, and sometimes, too, incompatible people find love and have children and all this other stuff, and that's kind of what's beautiful about the universe.
Right. Like, Beth and Jerry aren't necessarily destined for divorce, even if everyone who thinks they know what's going on thinks that's the natural conclusion of their relationship.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, divorce is very beneficial for many people, and it should be considered, if you're in a toxic relationship. But are they toxic? Are they codependent? Like, the moment when they go on couples therapy...
Love that.
Is that the Tiny Rick episode?
Yes, it is.
God, amazing episode. But when they go to couples therapy, and then it turns out, like, so they're codependent, and that's, like, the issue with their relationship. But then you see them working together, and you're like, they actually, like, that when they both turn on their therapist...
Mm-hmm. And they save the day without Rick's help.
And save the day. Like, they conquer their problems, or at least they conquer the immediate problems. They don't conquer the problems between them, the two of them. You know, it's just kind of amazing.
But they don't get killed by monsters.
But they don't get killed by monsters. That's really great. And I just...
As Mod King Mopey says there, are they toxic, or is Rick in their head?
I don't know if Rick is in their head. I think that everyone else... Because even Blim Blam the Flimflarp tells them that their relationship is toxic and they shouldn't be
They're
together.
the worst people he's ever met, and he, like, eats babies.
I'm Blim Blam the Flimflarp. By the way, every alien race is just them in the booth going blah blah. Like, it's just them making noise.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm utterly convinced. I haven't listened to any of the commentaries, but I'm utterly convinced that, like, every new thing they have to create, we got to invent a word for this. They just go, they just Rolf. And if you're not familiar with Rolfing, it's where you don't think of the thing you're about to say and you just let whatever noise comes out of your mouth, and then that becomes the word.
Plumbus.
Yeah, plumbus.
And then a Schlami comes, and then
spits
covers
on
it with Schleem.
By the way, the today on how they do it, perfect representation of how it's made. I've never seen how it's made parodied better than in that moment.
It's really, really good.
By the way, I don't want a plumbus at all. Like, they're so gross.
It's basically like this, like, I bet we could put a penis on TV. I bet we could do that. Like, how close can we get to it before standards and practices step in?
I think I saw someone, I know I saw Roiland, I think he was either looking at plumbuses, either drawings or 3D printings of them or whatever, but he was going through them all, and he's like, no, that's just a dick. That's not even. That's not a plumbus. That's just a dick with like with some cauliflower on the top. Like, he was immediately like, he is. That's the kind of dedication and fanaticism for their own creations that I like. Mm-hmm. Where I'm like, he's like, no, it's yes, we are making a joke about a dick, but it's not really a dick though. It's this thing that I specifically designed. It is this. Like, it's just, I love them.
It's really put together. You know, apparently Roiland really loves VR, and he's really pushing for, like, Rick and Morty virtual reality and stuff. That's, like, one of his side passions.
Roiland apparently is a big fan of video games and has always wanted to work with them.
All those Nintendo jokes. Apparently that's just a real conversation he had in the writer's room about, hey, they got this thing on for Nintendo DSs, so we can all get Nintendo DSs.
We love Nintendo DS! Send us some!
Hey, Nintendo, please send us stuff.
What was it? A friend of mine is in the video game industry, actually was approached by Justin Roiland.
Oh, shit.
He was like, or he missed him or something like that. But Roiland is, like, really, really plugged into the video game scene, and, like, he goes to, like, PAX East and stuff, and, like, goes to like video game cons, and he's like, what are you guys working on? What are you doing? Like, he liked something that my friend did, and he was like, and my friend kept missing him, and he's the guy who tried to get me into Rick and Morty in the first place. So, like, I'm like, I'm sorry you missed him, man. That sucks. But
see, I would really want to hang out with Harmon and meet him, but I don't know if I'd want to, like, hang out with Roiland for too long, because he genuinely seems like a madman. But that's, like, part of his charm. The line between insanity and genius is a thin one, thinner for some than others.
It's true. Well, I think that the trick is you have to make... I've dealt with people like him before, or at least what he seems to be, and the trick is to make your environment as, like... as effort-free as possible. Like, everything has to be ideal for them in order for them to enjoy it. Like, you know, whatever time you want to get together, whatever instance you want to do that, whatever drink you want to have on tap, like, we'll have that ready to go so that he can just be there and just be himself instead of being like, I need you to fit in this box and do this one thing. Like,
totally.
Harmon's very used to that. You can tell Harmon's like, yeah, I know how to do that. Like, Harmon's...
He's the order keeper. He's the reason, like, you know, I can wring genius out of Roiland, but I gotta, like, really work at it.
Well, he's played the game. He knows how the game is played. He knows the players in that game, and he knows that sometimes you have to play it, and sometimes you need somebody who's fucking out of their mind, like that guy.
There's a perfect example too. I think for one of the episodes coming up in season 3, they do like an episode about Rick's alcoholism, but without actually making it about alcoholism. But one of the things they had to do is that Roiland wanted to actually get drunk while recording.
Yeah.
And there's this great behind the scene footage of like the head artist and the VO person being like, this is horrible. We can't wrangle this guy at the best of times.
Right.
Now he's doing tequila shots. And then they cross on over to Harmon and he's like, oh no, you had to wrangle Justin Roiland for a day? Oh, I feel so bad for you. Oh, tiny violin.
That's fair.
So clearly he is his friend and he does wrangle him a lot.
Right. He's like, yeah, I need to rein him in, man. But thank God they are amazing creators, and the two of them are lightning in a bottle.
They complete each other in a really interesting way.
It's one of those things where the two of them work together to make something amazing, and God help them and maintain their relationship because we need
absolutely.
it. It's not like where Gravity Falls, where it's like, just get Alex Hirsch in a room and he'll give you brilliant, beautiful, gorgeous cartoons. Like, by the way, apparently Hirsch and Roiland are friends.
Yes, they are, and that's why you see little crossovers every so often between the shows.
Yeah, pick up the Gravity Falls journal, and you'll see a whole bunch of Rick and Morty references in there.
Yeah, there's some portals where some stuff goes back and forth. There was a character with like rainbow suspenders who was in the background of a couple shows that they had planned to make so much better. It was Roiland, Hirsch, and a third guy who did an animated show for Fox that was completed, but like Fox is sitting on it and refuses to release it.
That sucks.
And it's been done for years, and apparently that was supposed to be the third piece of this triumvirate that brings it all together.
Yeah. Fucking Fox, man. Thank God Adult Swim exists.
I know, right?
Because there wouldn't be half these shows.
No, there really wouldn't be. And FX is doing a good job, too, right now, even though it's basically just Archer. But hey, Archer's pretty good.
Yeah, and I guess, and those Archer people, are the Archer guys making the Deadpool show?
I'm sure it has to be some of them. It's Donald Glover and some other people involved with it, but I can only imagine they're going to be involved because that's the animation people they know.
Yeah.
Apparently, Reed had pitched another show, like a Mad Max comedy starring 2 women. There's only ever been like pictures of the pilot floating around. It never got released, and they like turned it down at the pilot stage. Which is weird, because I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see like a Road Warrior comedy.
I would love to see that. Are you kidding?
There's a lot of funny stuff you could do in Mad Max land.
Yeah.
Where it's like, geez, everyone just started wearing leather one day out of nowhere. Where did they find all these, all this leather fetish gear and like shoulder pads?
Right. So yeah, Rick and Morty, great show. If you haven't watched it, we've spoiled a bunch of it, but watch it. Check it out.
Really good.
The
season 3 starts the 30th of this month.
July 30th, watch it. It's going to be, I mean, let me tell you something, like, the first episode of season 3.
Released on April Fool's Day, which they said they didn't quite understand why Adult Swim wanted to do that, but everybody loved it.
Yeah.
It was a great trick. I remember telling you about it. It's like, Sal, they're streaming like the first episode of season 3 in Rick and Morty, and you're like, Joel, fuck off. That's not real. Why would you lie to me like that?
I completely didn't believe it. I was like, no, and my Twitter feed blew up. People were like, no, it's real, and I'm like, because I made plans that day. I was like, I'm going out. I'm not gonna fucking, and then I missed it. And then actually, my buddy who got me into the show, he ripped the show and he sent me a copy of it. But we also recorded. We were DVRing Samurai Jack.
Yeah, there you go.
And we got a full episode of Rick and Morty instead.
I wonder how I wonder how Tartakovsky felt about that. Where he's like, look, I love friggin' Rick and Morty too, guys, but like it took me a decade to finish Samurai Jack, and you're preempting me.
Yeah, I would have been pretty pissed.
I wonder if there's cartoonist heat now between Tartakovsky and the Rick and Morty people.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even talk about the Rick and Morty comics.
Oh yes, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah, I hear they need to get approval before the scripts go to like drawing.
They do. Whatever. They feel like they could all be episodes.
Here's the thing. I've read the first couple of issues. It feels like a tamer version of the show.
A little bit.
And while I like it, I don't know if I like it as much as the show.
They do feel like good side story tie-ins. The bit that made me laugh is they run into a time cop. there called Dr. Clock, who is literally just a Doctor Who stand-in.
Yes, I've seen that character.
And they're like, really, your name is Doc Clock? Seriously? What the fuck? What a terrible name.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good strip, or rather a good book.
If Poopy Butthole in Summer got a whole side adventure.
Yeah. I think that the idea here is like it's a great stand-in for the show and its absence. Like, you know, if you're missing the show, read the comic. It'll be a good stand-in. Although even then, like, the dudes, like, they love their creation so much, they're totally happy to do stuff with them. Like, there's Rick and Morty voice mods for for video games.
So good.
There's those amazing
Pocket
bumpers.
Mortys.
They made a Alien Covenant short.
I saw that.
Which is really funny. I loved it. Everything they're doing is just great. It's just
their merch game is pretty good. They got multiple board games. I know Harmon and Royland were joking, being like, hey, if you want 9 seasons of this show and your Mulan Szechuan sauce, be sure to pick up your Hot Topic Rick slippers. So we can get small cuts of that.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know if Hot Topic sales are the way to save your show. I saw 1,000 Gur dolls and toys and friggin' towels and shirts and Invader Zim garbage. It didn't save that show ever. Like,
you know all that Elite stuff I wear? If ever you see me around wearing that, apparently they inked a very profitable deal with Hot Topic to hold all their shit now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel good for those guys. I've been buying shit like from their wives for years. It's nice to see they inked something good.
Nice. So we will leave you before we go. I want to mention the podcast awards. Visit the description box below this video. You'll go to a link that's called podcastawards.com. Joel, me, and everybody involved with the weekly poll are nominated for podcast awards. And by the way, we're not competing with each other this time. You can vote for everybody.
Please do. We want you to vote for everybody.
So go to the podcastawards.com and vote for Elseworlds Exchange, the weekly poll, and of course the poll.
Yes.
Check those out because it'd be nice to win some awards.
It would be. I know in years past, I think, back when I was with Comic Book Cast, I think we actually came pretty close, but we lost to a Walking Dead friggin' podcast. And I think the other big one was a Taylor Swift podcast. Luckily, there's none of that going on this year. There's no, like, big celebrities friggin' gumming up the work. So I think we got a shot if everybody goes and votes.
Yeah, I agree.
And also tell your parents and grandparents to vote for us too.
Yes, you got to go over to the podcast or to podcastawards.com, register, and then find us. We're in all this. We have 3 different categories. Plus, Elseworlds Exchange is also nominated for Best in Show or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. But check them all. Check all the categories for the weekly poll, the poll, and of course Elseworlds Exchange, and give us a vote. We really appreciate it.
Yes,
and,
I think if we win, we get to go to Vegas where the actual awards are held and they're streamed live. So that's cool.
Agreed. Yeah, Sam mentions that we got a lot of competition. People's Choice Award is for Elseworlds Exchange.
Yes.
50 other shows are nominated for that one, but I think we got a good shot.
I like our odds. We got a pretty loyal fan base there. What was it? Was it Bleeding Cool? Elseworlds Exchange. We got that and the weekly poll at the same time.
Yeah, we almost edged out the weekly poll. So
shocking.
Not bad.
So I mean, fuck yeah.
Yeah. I like, damn, no Taylor Swift podcast is here? Guess I'll have to vote for you guys then. Yeah. Sorry, no. T Swift is not representing this year.
No. But imagine if we met her at the award show and she was really pissed. She really wanted this particular award.
It'd be great. She could write a whole song about us.
As she often does of the people who make her angry.
True.
Never make T Swift angry or you'll be a #1 hit.
You kidding? I would love to do that. I'll go to her house and throw eggs at her fucking door. Like...
She writes a whole concept album about that dickhead who threw eggs at my house.
Exactly. But, hey, everybody, thanks a lot for hanging out with us today on the Elseworlds Exchange. We'll see you guys next week with another episode. What's happened on Cape Joel? Everybody can be excited to go check out before we go.
Well, Matt came back from vacation, and I was totally supposed to have a new episode of the Comic Multiverse, but because Windows updated on my computer, it means OBS reverted back to the fucking presets, which means, well, you can hear Matt perfectly. No one could hear me because it wasn't picking up my mic.
Damn.
Although, if you're a patron, you get to hear an absolutely hilarious episode. I'm sure you've heard of, like, Garfield minus Garfield. You get Comic Multiverse minus Joel, so it's just Matt talking to nobody.
That's awesome.
But if you want something good and like something I'm actually pretty proud of, I did the first episode of Comic Spice this week. Me eating hot sauce, burning my mouth, and talking about Deadpool versus Punisher.
Nice. Yeah, I watched the episode yesterday. It was fun.
I need to work on the echo. It's the really high ceilings. I didn't film it in my kitchen. I filmed it in the condo kitchen, which is really nice, but I didn't think echo would be a problem. I should also probably sit down in the next one. I don't know if you saw, but when I'm uncomfortable, I sway a lot.
Yes, I did see that.
I become freaking Axl Rose.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever, November rain.
By the way, thank you very much to Getting Arthur the Lobster for jumping into the super chat right at the tail end of the episode. Thank you so much, man. But yeah, check all that out, and of course, catch us in about an hour or so for the new episode of Back Issues, where we're going to be doing DC's Legends from 1986.
Good year.
This is a fun episode, guys. Check it out. So, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.